link to all the photos that we have set up?
Yep.
While I'm doing the Hey guys, welcome to Cast Strength. I'm Vito. Josh. Long time out. Brad has joined us once again, only to oversee a slew of technical issues. So thank you guys for sticking with us.
Yes.
And we welcome you back. Like, subscribe. We really appreciate it. And when you want to know when we're going to go live, today we have the fourth expression in the Glenfiddich experimental series for you, Fire and Cane, a very special guest to give us a community update and some advice when pairing whiskeys and tobacco. And as always, we'll end the show with some fiddly bits. But today, Josh, I won more spelling for donuts. I don't know what I just said there. But I win. Binging with Babish spells donuts D-O-N-U-T. So I think I win here.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard to argue with Babish. Just to be fair, I'm the one that admitted that to you. I caught that on his episode about making donuts, and I said, well, if there's any YouTube authority on how donuts are spelled, I guess we'd have to go with Babish. So he's got the sexiest voice on YouTube for sure, and a hell of a book.
That is accurate.
Yeah,
he totally does. And I'm just going to take that small victory because when it comes to stuff like this, I'm going to be a little bit of a jerk, and I'm going to rub it in your face. D-O-N-U-T-S. Donuts.
It's fair game. Yeah, that's fair enough. I will be overruled by Babish. Damn it.
As it should be.
All right. So now, Brad, after the last little bit of trying to figure all this out, what is in your glass today?
In my glass right now is some Great King Street Artist Blend.
Yeah.
Just an
Ooh.
ish blend from Compass Box. Nothing too heavy, just nice light, honey sweetness with the little maltiness running through. Just nice, easy to drink,
Yeah, I think you need to pick that one up. I have the Glasgow blend that you talked about before, and that one's pretty nice.
That one is nice, the peated one. This one's unpeated, but still tasty.
Right. I decided to, because of course we know, sadly, the American whiskey legend Dave Pickerel passed away in San Francisco in attending a whiskey event. Of course, if anybody doesn't know, he was master distiller at Maker's Mark for many years, and then of course instrumental in the Whistle Pig distillery, and then did the blackened whiskey with Metallica as well. So I'm having a little bit in his honor of the Whistle Pig Old World, which is a super cool rye. It's a blend of aged in Madeira, Sauterne, and port casks, which is delicious stuff. What about you, Vito? What you got over there?
I have the Royal Lochnagar 12-year single malt. That for anyone that might think that sounds a little familiar, it's the expression being used by the Diageo Game of Thrones release for House Baratheon.
Oh.
Yeah, so there a couple of the other distilleries in the release are releasing off-age stuff, like Lagavulin, I believe, is using a 9-year-old release for it. And I think Dalwhinnie is using their existing winter, I forget what it's called, winter frost or something.
Yeah,
something or other, right? So Royal Lochnagar gave their 12-year single malt up for House Baratheon,
nice.
And it's tasty, it's fresh. Today I'm getting a bit of brininess from it, which is really strange. Which I didn't get before, but again, I was talking to you before about it. I've let it rest for quite a while now. Maybe that's what happens, but I'm actually quite enjoying this port today, more so than before.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited for that Game of Thrones release. I'm I'm a sucker for that marketing. So
Yeah.
Some of those sound like legit delicious.
oh, totally. It's that's the
100%.
thing. Like, not only is it great marketing, but it's also whiskey I would totally want to drink too, for the most
Yeah.
part anyway.
So I think we have a fourth individual waiting to share what's in his glass and some other things about himself. Do we have some
green room?
Do we have a sombreroed individual on standby?
Amigo, you don't have an individual on standby. You have the Whiskey Mariachi.
Who let this wily bastard in here?
Don't ask, don't tell, amigo. The Whiskey Mariachi finds his own way.
What you have there, Mariachi?
Right now, amigo, I have a bottle of Pocket Brand small batch bourbon. Very special to the mariachi's heart. You know why? I'll tell you. It's because it's whiskey.
Oh, fantastic. So, does everybody? I mean, I assume everybody knows of the Whiskey Mariachi now. I mean, he is famous or infamous
of the Whiskey Mariachi. I don't know if they do though.
Yeah. What is the origin of the Whiskey Mariachi? Where did the mariachi find his love of whiskey, or was it always there?
Well, the mariachi didn't always know that he loved the whiskey. He was born in the mountains in a jungle, and he found a cave with a bottle wrapped in leather. Unwrapped the leather, and I found a bottle of whiskey. I drink it, and suddenly my life becomes clear. My mission becomes clear. My eyes become open to this entire community of whiskey lovers. And I see good things. I see horrible things. I see people judging. Oh, this guy drinks whiskey that's expensive. Oh, this guy drinks whiskey that's cheap. He's horrible. He's despicable. Oh, this guy drinks with ice. And the mariachi says to himself, no, this is not right. We must remember that whiskey is for everybody. Whiskey is for sharing. One of the mottos of the mariachi is, the life we live is for love. The life we share and the whiskey we share is for joy. So let's go around, regardless of what you feel about whiskey, and share the joy, amigos. And so be it if it comes in a bottle or a Glencairn.
I love it. I love it.
Couldn't have said it better ourselves.
Well put, for sure.
So tell me a little bit about what do you love about that whiskey you have there, Mariachi?
Well, this particular whiskey is, of course, a bourbon. Most bourbons, they have a nice, even flavor. You know what you're going to get, but very variances. But this is a special one with a special distillation process that it creates a much smoother finish.
Oh, nice.
So you get the traditional bourbon flavors, smooth finish, not great, not poor. Just a beautiful dram for everybody. And that's what the mariachi is about. Whiskey for everybody, no?
To the mariachi, all whiskey is good whiskey?
Every single bottle is whiskey. You know, amigo, you have people that can afford the great whiskeys that are $500, $600, $5,000. And then you have people that can't afford it. If you can swallow it, amigo, it's good. And it's good to share. If anything, you get a good laugh when you see somebody drink something like Canadian Mist or Hay Club. It's hilarious, amigo.
It is a good time. It is a good time, for sure.
Yeah, I was just wondering about what would the mariachi's thoughts on Hay Club be?
Amigo, it's drinkable, no? I love to share the Hay Club. I drink it once, maybe twice, maybe even 3 times. No, 4 times. But I give it to everybody. And the face that they make makes the mariachi's heart feel with joy because I know they love it. They love to hate it sometimes too, no?
I'd say that's very, very, very true. Yeah, next time you're in Austin, Mariachi, I need to serve you some Canadian Hunter, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, I've always wanted to hunt a Canadian.
Well, there's two here for you to hunt right now, so good luck to
you. Fantastic.
So yeah, speaking of whiskeys, Josh. Do you enjoy Speyside?
Oh God.
Of course you do.
Where is this going?
They're delicious. Lots of sweet fruits, vanillas, a bit of spiciness. And when I think about Speyside, what do you think I think the first bottle pops into my head, Brad? That's right, it's Monkey Shoulder.
Of course.
Monkey Shoulder is 100% malt whiskey made from mixing. Small batches of select single malts from Speyside that are expertly blended, then married together for a richness and vibrancy that combine with fruity aromas and mellow vanilla notes, making it a perfect whiskey for mixing. As a matter of fact, I'm having some Monkey Shoulder right now, and it's delicious. With a playful attitude and commitment to the unconventional, the people at Monkey Shoulder are bringing great Scotch to a new generation of whiskey. Now at your local vendor and start something fun in your own vaults.
How much are you getting paid by Monkey Shoulder? He's on the Monkey Shoulder payroll, I think.
Seriously, shoulder now. I don't know what's going on. Crazy.
It's delicious.
And it looks like the mariachi has left the building, but we do, for some reason, still have a fourth person because Raymond showed up.
Hey, Ray! Did you see the mariachi?
Hey, Ray!
Hey, how you guys doing? Well, I saw a big guy running past me with a big sombrero. He kind of startled me for a second there. He seemed like a great guy, though.
Well, it's good to see you, Ray.
It's good to see you guys, too. Glad to hang out with you.
Yeah, this is an unexpected surprise.
Be talking to the mariachi all night. I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
Apparently, the mariachi, he's a busy guy, and he kind of wants to just make sure everybody's enjoying and sharing some good whiskey.
Sure.
Yep, mariachi's a hell of a guy.
He is.
I agree.
Well, so Ray, bit of an expert in the pipe and cigar worlds, I think, more so than any of us, anyway. So, I was wondering, when you're smoking cigars or pipe tobacco, what's your approach to pairing it with whiskey? Because I always kind of struggle with that. Sometimes they overpower a little bit. Sometimes, the cigar's too mild or too strong. Right? What do you think is a good way to pair up whiskey with tobacco?
Well, the biggest thing is if you're new to either or, you want to start out with the easiest to deal with. Right? So it's like if you're new to whiskey, you're not going to just hammer somebody with an Ardbeg or an Octomore.
Sure.
You're going to break them in with something that's a little bit more friendly, like Vito's favorite, Monkey Shoulder.
Yes, Monkey Shoulder.
The same thing goes with tobacco. It's you want to start out with the lighter, easier to deal with flavors. And always remember that tobacco is going to dull your whiskey. No matter what you do, there's no way around it. It's going to dull it, and it's going to hide a lot of things.
Right.
So what I recommend if you're just starting out is you start out with what's called a Connecticut blend if you're smoking cigars. And that is the lightest of cigars. You have very light, creamy, nutty, vanilla-type flavors. It has a light wrapper, not an expansive flavor profile. And you want to take that and pair it with whiskeys, like just an everyday whiskey to start out with, like a bourbon, or maybe a nice Highland or Speyside. Camp out with that for a while and then gradually move up. And as everything, taste is subjective. So the more you adjust to those flavor profiles competing against each other, you can move up to a Habano, what's called a Habano or a Maduro. And then you can begin to play as your palate adjusts to all these things. And the same thing with pipe tobacco. It's a little bit harder with pipe tobacco.
Yeah. I know in my limited experience, I smoke cigars every once in a while, like maybe once a week or something like that. And usually I like pairing it with a smoky Scotch personally, and I feel like that kind of stands up to the cigar usually. Especially if I'm smoking something like I go for Drew Estates, Liga Privada, number 9. That's a good one. And what's the other one I had? It was a Perdomo, something or other there that it paired really well with whiskey. But then sometimes I feel like they clash, or the cigar turns the whiskey into loses all of its flavor, like you were saying. So I think it's definitely crucial to have some guidance there in how to pair them appropriately for the best experience. So
the easiest thing to do is you compare like a Connecticut blend cigar to a more of aggressive whiskey. And yeah, there's big obvious differences. But I find for me personally, the more experience I have with starting at those bottom levels of both, as you get to adjust to where things are.
Right.
And then you graduate, maybe increase the more expressive whiskeys and stick to the lower whiskey and gradually increase that. Then start going up with the cigars. It really comes down to time and experience, and it's a slow process and it's an exploration, and it can be frustrating at times.
Now, real quick, Steve A just gave us what he's pairing right now with his Ugadal, his Ardbeg Ugadal.
Yeah.
A Domo is what he's enjoying with his Ardbeg Ugadal right now.
Very nice.
Nice.
And I'm going to insert here a little bit. Over the summer, I tried, and I don't know very much about cigars, but I had a stick of Romeo and Juliet, and I'm not too sure if the gauges or the lengths really have a lot to do with the overall flavor of the cigar. You could probably tell me a bit more about that, but I found it paired extremely well with the standard Redbreast 12. Not the cash, just a standard. And I haven't tried a cigar. I haven't had a cigar in a while. It's standard now, so it's really uncomfortable to stand outside, or even in the garage smoking a cigar for 45 minutes to an hour. But I'd love to try a Romeo and Juliet with the cast strength version to see how that compares to the regular.
Sure.
But I found those two work very well together when I had it in the summertime.
Well, another thing, there's a difference in strength of flavor, and then a strength in how much nicotine a cigar will deliver, right? I've definitely had the experience when I've been out drinking whiskey. In fact, a few weeks ago, I was at the Wizard Academy and smoking a cigar out on the patio there, and we left shortly after that, and I was getting just sick to my stomach, right? I was like, it was too strong of a cigar, not in flavor, but in how much nicotine it delivered all at once.
Right.
Well, in cigars, there's a lot of variance, right? You have different blends, different styles. You have mixed blends. You have a short filler, a long filler.
Right.
You have Connecticut, which is the easiest to drink to smoke. You have Maduro, which was one of the more difficult. And sometimes you can have the combination of all these things. Now, one thing you got to take into consideration is, are you smoking on an empty stomach?
Oh, yeah.
That's going to make that cigar a little bit more powerful than it otherwise would be.
I didn't know that, actually.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I definitely hadn't eaten that day.
Yeah, and then also, going back to what you're saying, Vito, as you smoke that cigar, the flavor is going to change a lot. Just like the flavor of a whiskey, as it gains more oxidation, if it sits on the shelf as you've been drinking it slowly, it's going to change the flavor profile. Except with a cigar, the longer you smoke it, the shorter it gets. All those oils and everything, you're drawing those in. So the closer you get to the base of that, those flavors are going to be more pronounced. Maybe you're going to pick up different notes.
Right.
And that also is going to change the pairing of your whiskey. It's going to change the dynamic. That little conversation you're having between the whiskey and the cigar.
Okay.
So that may answer some of those questions.
Totally.
Sniper Mac 1 in the chat is asking Ray, what's in your bowl and what pipe is that?
Check out this pipe.
And real quick, I think a Sniper Mac from Toronto. So
Yeah, this within my bowl is a Dunhill London mix, which it's a combination of a little bit of Latakia and Virginia blend. It's a very easy smoke. It's a nice pipe tobacco to pair with pretty much anything, really. You wouldn't want to go to something like Hay Club because it's close to vodka as you can get in the whiskey world.
Sure.
Not a lot to compare there. But it pairs nicely with the Speyside, Highland, and you go on up and up and up. It doesn't compete too much as far as that goes.
Sure.
What about storage of stuff like this? I know that's super important, right? Especially cigars, but I'm sure with pipe tobacco as well, like storing it properly, keeping it at a proper humidity and all that. What are your tips on that?
Cigars, it depends on your preference, but generally, if you stay between 65 and 75% humidity in a humidor, which is just usually made out of pine box, if you can stay within that humidity range, that'll keep your cigars forever. And the most you'll notice is some white kind of dust-looking things on your cigars. That's called plume. That's actually a good thing. It's not mold. It's not bad. That's aging your cigars. With pipe tobacco, it's a little bit easier because all you got to do, most time if you buy it, you're going to buy it in a pouch or a can. As long as you put it in a sealed container like this, you're fine. It'll last you for a good long while. And if you're worried about it, I mean, you can put it in your humidor with your cigars a little bit to increase the humidity so it doesn't dry out too much.
I know what works well for me is I have a little it's a small humidor. It's like a lunchbox, right? It's kind of like a plastic clamshell thing, and it's meant to as a travel humidor, and it can hold like 15 cigars or something. And I buy one of those little hydration pack Bovida, I think is what they're called, right? And stick one of those in there. It's kind of, it's not like a pretty beautiful humidor where you can store a nice selection of cigars for a long time, but for somebody like me, that's great for having a handful, and I'll keep them for a few months and smoke them once a week or something like that. That tends to work pretty well for me. But I didn't know that about pipe tobacco.
What's that?
I didn't know that about pipe tobacco, though, that you could just sort of pop it in a jar and it's good to go.
Yeah, as long as you're in a sealed container, it'll last you a good long while. And just check it every once in a while. If it seems like it's getting too dry, just pop it in there with your humidor if you can. The usually with the Bovida packs, it's something that I plan on storing long term. I generally don't use the Bovida packs because they're generally only good for about a week or so. And a lot of times in a small humidor, they can over humidify. So you have problems with burn issues on your cigar or unraveling. It kind of look like if you wet a piece of paper and you see the little ripples, your cigars can kind of do that too. So generally, I mean, they sell these little circular things with like a little sponge in them.
Right.
Put a little distilled water in there with maybe a gauge to determine your humidity. That tends to work better for me if I'm storing those cigars for a long time, if they're just special occasion cigars. But if I plan on smoking them within the next week or two, the Vito packs are great.
Yeah, I've even heard of people using like Tupperware in a pinch. They call it a Tupper door.
You know what? I was looking at a peek behind the curtain. I was looking at a little rundown sheet here, and I saw Tupperdoors, and I was so confused. I was like, did he mean to spell it that way? Is that just like a weird thing that I don't know about? Like, what's a Tupperdoor? That sort of makes sense, and I just saw Mike in the chat once again say you can rehydrate with a Ziploc bag and a damp paper towel. And if that's something that works, I can totally see that like being something that you can use in a Tupperware or a Tupperware, if you will.
Right.
You can use a damp towel. You can use a sponge. A lot of people put them in the freezer, but when you're rehydrating cigars, especially, it's extremely tricky, and they're extremely temperamental once they dry out.
Right. You could easily ruin it, right?
Yeah, it's very tricky, and it's a crapshoot. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Oh, he added for pipe tobacco.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very easily something you can do. Pipe tobacco is way different than cigars.
Okay,
sure.
You have a lot more leniency, and because of that, if they go too dry, you can save them. They're not going to unravel because you're packing it. They're not pre-rolled and everything like that. Some of the styles of pipe tobacco, like a jelly roll, for instance, I mean, it is rolled, but you can easily rehydrate that and make it to where it's manageable. You might dull the flavor profile in the process, but other than that, you'll be good.
I just saw Ed in the chat from Rock Gut Review there was talking about how he stored something in Tupperware. It wasn't cigar, but Everclear and Miller Lite, and called it Everbeer.
Oh God!
Sure.
only someone from Wisconsin would come up with that.
Yeah, that's very Wisconsin, isn't it? Like,
hold on,
cheese curds.
Wait a
and
minute.
Everbeer.
Stop everything. Ed's in the chat.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just quickly just announce or talk directly to him at the moment.
Oh, he's got a bone to pick.
With Brad directly behind me, figuratively. Rock Gut Reviews, helmed by Ed and his father. Wonderful channel. Check them out. Great content, great reviews. However, Canadian Hunter versus Canadian Mist episode. Now, in the beginning, Ed does a very lovely job singing the Canadian national anthem. Well done, you. It was beautiful.
Absolutely.
I love it. However, one of the images as part of that montage struck a chord. And not a good chord. A bit of a bad chord. Nickelback is not our national pride.
Oh, Nickelback. Oh, sounds like you
in the Tailback. Ed, do not get me started. I love you. But Nickelback is where I draw the line.
It's a good line.
Celine Dion.
If you're Canadian, right?
Billy Talent. Sum 41. Rush should be number 1 on that list. I will not tolerate this. Ed, you have my attention, and I will get you guys.
Oh.
Just for the record, for all you Americans out there that aren't aware, I will not tolerate this is about as angry as a Canadian can possibly.
Also, I'm really sorry. I got really annoyed. I'm sorry.
Like 8 seconds before the apology. Oh, you know he's pissed.
You just witnessed Canadian fury.
I thought it was I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
So sorry.
Saying I'm sorry sounds so insincere. I'm sorry. Now that sounds serious.
I have a really quick question for you, Ray. Going back to something a little bit less heated. What is your advantage you've been able to sort of pair for? I did a bad job at asking that question, but best cigar / tobacco versus with your is the most thing you've had to date that works.
To me, I love wood notes and my whiskey and my cigars. So the best pairing that I've had is either the Gurkha 12-year Cellar Reserve with a Deanston Virgin Oak or a Grand Habano with the Deanston Virgin Oak.
Okay. See, Adam would love to hear you say that right now because he loves the virgin oak.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really likes that expression from Deanston.
It's tasty.
It's incredible. I love it. The first time I tried it, it tasted like freshly cut wood. And that's changed, obviously, as my palate's developed. But that's what it takes me to it, is just like a sawmill. And it's a beautiful, beautiful little scotch that's affordable. That's what I love about it, is you don't have to have a lot of money to have a great scotch.
Yeah, I think that's just it. I wouldn't even call it like underrated or something at this point. It seems like a lot of people are really, really singing the praises of the virgin oak, but it punches way above its weight.
Yeah.
Roy from Aqua Vitae, which is another channel. If you don't follow, you definitely should go take a look at Aqua Vitae. I believe it's in our homepage if anyone needs the link. But he today released one of his recycled whiskey videos where he goes through 15 whiskeys and he recycles them. And he talks really quickly about each whiskey, and I believe he rated the Virgin Oak 8 or 8.5, and he was really impressed by it.
Oh yeah.
I still haven't tasted it, and I live 20 minutes from Adam. I definitely have to get that as part of my my repertoire soon because I hear nothing but good things about it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things you can't go wrong with. I mean, you really can't. It's got something for everybody, I think.
Yeah, Deanston's a great distillery overall. I've never had anything from them that I've been just disappointed in. Virgin Oak, the 12, the 14, excellent stuff. But we have an entirely different distillery offering to talk about tonight, right?
We do.
Yes.
It's time for the weekly dram.
The Glenfiddich Fire and Cane. This has been a popular one recently, right?
Yes, it has. All three of us. Unfortunately, Ray doesn't have one, but he is going to stick around, and maybe if we give some tasting notes. This is a complete surprise. We didn't discuss this. Maybe if we get some tasting notes to it, he can maybe suggest a cigar or tobacco to go with it. Maybe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You can just experience the Fire and Cane vicariously through our descriptions.
Sure.
Next time,
Absolutely.
we'll make sure that you, if you haven't had some by then, we'll get some in your hands.
Yeah. So you've had it, Vito, and Brad, is this your first time having it?
It's not. I have had it once before.
Okay. So
I had a small like half pour tasting at the Caledonian in Toronto. Another shout out, just because that seems to be what I'm doing today. The Caledonian Scotch whiskey bar in Toronto, part of the Ardbeg Embassy. If you're ever in Toronto, or if you live in Toronto, get down there. They're awesome. They host whiskey tastings. I had a small little pour with the Canadian Glenfiddich ambassador about a month ago, and I got a small tasting, and I had been craving this ever since.
Yeah, it's really delicious stuff, and I think it's the first peated Glenfiddich. Is that right?
No, actually, the master distiller ran a peated run for somewhat of a larger release back in like 01 or 02, if I'm not mistaken, was the year. But they haven't done anything since, and it was kind of like a one-off run that they did. But they normally run a peat. I think what I remember from the tasting is Glenfiddich actually runs a peated run once a year. But the peat that came from that they use for this is from Belvini, which is right across the street.
Right.
They use the peated spirit from Belvini for use in this expression.
Yeah, they're kind of sister distilleries or something, I guess, right?
I think so, something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's peated, lightly peated, but
Lightly
finished
peated,
in
yeah,
rum
cotton.
casks.
It doesn't take much peat for you to really get the flavors, though.
No, it absolutely
You
comes
can
through.
definitely pick it up.
They strive to not overtake the influence of the the Latin, what they say is Latin rum casks, with the peat. So they lightly peated it. It was ex-bourbon, initial maturation, and then up to 6 months in the Latin rum casks. And you get a bit of peat on the nose. You get a bit of sweetness as well. Also, for people wondering, it's there is color added to this, but it's non-chill filtered. Oh, sorry, my apologies. It is color added and chill filtered at 43% ABV.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think the smoke does really come through on that.
Yeah, very very lightly on the nose.
Yeah, and the taste, it kind of remains that Glenfiddich light, fruity character still remains despite the peat and the dark, rich rum influence as well. You still get sort of a lightness from it.
Yeah.
Finish is so beautiful. Top of your mouth. Does that still consider the palate? Whatever.
Yeah, you can call it that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's strong for me. It's strong on the roof of my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful richness. You can taste a bit of that rum influence.
Yeah, almost like an icing sugar kind of sweetness.
Yeah,
to it,
100%. Yeah, but it is first with that peat. You do get the peat. At least I get the peat right away. And then I get the rum, and then on the finish, I get like a spear of. If you ever had sugar cane and like gnawed on a piece of sugar cane before.
Yeah, absolutely.
It like I get that like just coming in from the back on the back end just to sweeten up everything.
Yep. It's not terribly complex or anything like that. I think it's a really tasty, interesting, but fairly simple and light whiskey. So it's different, it's unique, but and I find it to be delicious, but at the same time, it does lack a little bit of depth to me.
Sure.
I can sort of see where you're coming from, but for me, it kind of feels. And I don't know how much is it in where you are in Austin.
Yeah, no, it's a great value. It's around $40.
Yeah, for
Super cheap.
when it hits the LCBO in Canada, where me and Brad are in Ontario, it's gonna be about $80, and $80 Canadian, so that ends up being 60 US.
Yeah, something
right around there.
60-ish.
For us up here, in comparison to everything else,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost an instant buy for me. It meets what I would want at that price point in Ontario for me. And it's absolutely delicious. I can see what you're saying. It's a bit shallow.
Right. I don't mean to say it's bad by any means.
No, absolutely.
It is amazingly drinkable.
Mm-hmm.
It's scary drinkable. Like we were talking about this,
dangerous.
the other night.
Dangerously
Brad,
drinkable, yeah.
The first time you had it, we were talking, and you're just like, "Oh wow, this is dangerous."
Yep,
That's
better put this bottle away, because if it's next to me, it's going to be a problem.
That's the first thing that me and Adam said to each other when we first tried this at the bar. Is like, "Wow, this is going to be dangerous when we get a bottle of it."
Okay, I got a question for you guys. With this particular whiskey, what memory or place does this whiskey take you to?
For me, I grew up in Arkansas and Louisiana and New Orleans. I spent a lot of time in New Orleans growing up, and there were places out in the country where sugarcane would be growing on farms, etc. And every once in a while, I'd be driving somewhere with my mom, my dad in the car, and I'd get out on one of these farms and snag a piece of sugarcane right out of the ground and peel it open and gnaw on the sugarcane like we were describing earlier. And it absolutely reminds me of exactly that. It brings me back into that side of a Louisiana road farm, chewing on sugarcane as a little kid.
That's awesome.
Nice. Yeah, makes me want to find some sugarcane because I haven't gnawed on any sugarcane. I feel like I'm missing out.
Yeah, it's kind. I mean, it's like sugar juice, but also kind of like chewing on splinters at the same time. So I mean, it's really not actually that pleasant, but it's sweet.
Maybe I'll just pour another dram of this then.
Yeah, you're getting the experience well enough there, I think.
Yeah, it reminds me of the first time I went to Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, just not even because of the sugarcane, which actually I didn't have any in Cuba, or even in the Dominican when I was there. I've had sugarcane at a market in Toronto, but it just kind of gives me that sort of Caribbean air. Like it just kind of just reminds me, like the smell and the finish of it just reminds me of all that, all like just sitting by the beach and having like a nice Caribbean rum and just relaxing, and the bit of that brininess does come through with the peat a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very light. It's not. It's almost like it might not even be there. It might just be there for me, just because my mind's playing tricks on me. But like it just kind of it brings me back to being on a beach in the Caribbean, and just ease. That's what this speaks to me. It's just.
It is kind of a nice, like, comforting.
Just take it easy and like mellow out and relax. And
it is. The smoke is kind of a campfire smoke, and I see Gretchen and a few other folks in the chat mentioning that it's not really like an Isla kind of smoke, right?
Like a wet moss.
Right.
It's a little campfire the next day after a rain sort of deal.
Right.
I can see that.
Yep.
Yeah.
That kind of made up my decision as far as what to pair that particular whiskey with. There is, I would pair it with a cigar. I think it's a Ibera Carrera beer. Anyway, it's called Mr. Brownstone, and I would pair it with either the Habano, which is a new release, or the Maduro. And the notes that you get off of those. With the Habano, it's a lot softer, but you get like a Mexican chocolate.
Sure.
Okay.
And you get toasted like walnut, and a very kind of with the Habano, it's kind of a subtle earthy tone. With the Maduro, it's a lot more intense. But probably the Habano would probably be better. Mr. Brownstone Habano, Ibera Carreras.
That sounds like a fantastic pairing.
Yeah, I think it would go really nicely. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is that the strength of those two cigars are a little bit stronger. Even the Habano is a little bit stronger than most Habano. So, you don't want it to kick your ass on the nicotine. But sure. I think what you're describing is you have that sweetness, that sugarcane sweetness, which is used predominantly in Latino cultures. For cooking on all sorts of things, with that Mexican chocolate, toasted walnuts, all that. I think that would combine to just make an absolute pleasurable experience. Maybe, sit next to a stream with a campfire or a lake or something. That'd be great.
Yeah. I've seen in the chat Canadian Whiskey Smith, which I believe is Teresa, right?
Yes, it is.
That's right.
Yeah. Mentioning Aaron as they have all those cask finishes and stuff like that in their line as something she would prefer to the Fire and Cane here. I'd tend to agree. I think if I was presented with a choice, I'd take the Aaron as being a little more to my liking. But I enjoy it.
I haven't had the Aaron.
Yeah, you haven't had any Aaron, huh?
No, and surprisingly, I live 20 minutes from the Aaron King. Adam,
right. So. Yeah, he's the one who sold me on it. So,
Brad, you have a bottle of Aaron, don't you?
Yeah, I have the Amarone cask one, I think. Coincidentally.
Okay. Now, how? Out of curiosity, you've opened it up, correct?
I have, yeah.
How would you compare it? How would you compare it to this? Not even so much compare it for the
too
price
long,
point.
So I'd have to A/B it, but
okay.
I would say probably more complex than
right
for sure.
Okay.
A little more body to it, maybe.
In the same ballpark, but with the complexity boosted up.
Right.
And they're not far off on price point, at least around me. Maybe within $10 of each other. So I'm not sure what Aaron cost for you guys, but
So let's say for the price, and I feel like we should probably do the Aaron at some point, maybe sometime soon.
yeah.
But for the price point, and I'm not gonna take part in this because I obviously don't know, but let's say both were $80 or $40 in Austin.
About 45 for the firing cane.
45. So let's say they were the same.
Aaron.
They were the same price.
Yeah.
What would you aim for?
At the same price, I'd take the Aaron if I could only choose one.
Right.
Ditto.
Brad? Yeah?
Yeah, ditto. Yeah.
Now I need to try the Aaron because I really like this. So
Yeah. And of course, the Aaron's got 5 or 6 different cast finish versions, right? And
the Aaron
there's a
was
whole
crazy,
bunch.
and I think on the Whiskey Vault channel they recently talked about Aaron, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they've definitely had it on there before. The 14-year-old's quite nice too, as Ross in the chat there. Yeah, that's quite good.
Yeah, I think they talked about it very recently on a Tribe episode, or they were just drinking it, and they mentioned it. But anyways,
Yep.
yeah. Bottom line, I need to try some more Aaron, or I need to try Aaron,
And Aaron.
I'll be texting Adam immediately after we sign off to do it. But yeah, no, this is wonderful. More than what I remembered. For me, beautifully peated, just sweet enough. A really nice in between, like you mentioned, Josh. Not a lot of, but for me, I don't think it needs it. It is what it is. It's a bit of peaty, a bit of sweetness, and it kind of marries very well together. Kind of like just nestles in a small little bundle of Scotch, if you will.
Absolutely. It's just a nice, comforting, fairly simple drink.
I think, Vito, did you just coin a new term? I think you just coined a new term. Instead of like a pour or a dram, just give me a bundle of Scotch.
A bundle of Scotch. I love it. Done.
I love that.
Barkeep, I will take 1 bundle of Scotch, please.
Excellent.
I can see what you're saying. Like, if there was too much going on in here, then the rum influence is very clear and distinct. The light, fruity character of the spirit is very distinct, and then also the peat comes through as well. And if there was a whole bunch more going on in there, it might just kind of muddy things up.
Yeah,
sure.
So,
So, I think that's it.
Yeah, I mean, solid recommend for me.
If I can add a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm gonna away the lovely fiddly bit that comes with the bottle, a little notebook.
Sure, yeah.
It comes with it details 2 different tasty notes. It gives you a smoky tasty note and a more sweet tasty notes.
Right, because their whole deal is that some people perceive it as more smoky and some people perceive it as more spicy sweet.
Which is the first time I've seen that being as part of an expression of any distillery. Is 2 separate tasting notes. One very much directed on the peaty side, and one very much directed at the sweet side.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be a part of Glenfiddich's marketing angle these days. Like they have the code, right, where it's all about what do you perceive in it, right?
Quite smart, actually.
Yeah, they're trying to.
I didn't even consider the code.
They're not dictating to you exactly what's in it. They're saying, "Oh, some people see it this way, some people see it that way. Try it for yourself, and what do you think?"
Yeah,
which is a clever way to present whiskey, I think.
Damn it, Josh. We're going to get emails now because the code is Glenlivet, not Glenfiddich.
Oh,
he got me.
My bad.
I've had too much to drink.
You've been psalmed.
Oh, there it is.
My bad. Glenlivet again. They're all the same. What are they? Glen something.
It's all whiskey, right?
What even is a Glen anyway?
People are going to be really upset.
No, seriously, I know what a Glen is. I understand. Yeah.
All right. So
my bad.
With that fiddly bit and Josh's just absolute thrashing of any sort of
I don't know how to spell
Scotch
donuts.
knowledge.
I don't know what Glens are. I mean, come on.
We're gonna
fine.
transition. We're gonna transition to our segment of fiddly bits, and I'm gonna go right to our good friend Ray with his lovely pipe in hand. Is there something that's happened in your life recently that you could recommend to the people of Cast Strength?
Something that I could recommend.
Anything from music to video games.
Well, there's a couple of things, right? I'm a big blues aficionado.
Ooh,
blues is
love me some
something-
blues.
Blues is something that I would always recommend.
Oh
And
yeah.
C6 Steve is an older gentleman that didn't get his start until he was 65 years old.
Right.
And homemade instruments, and he's incredible. And he's somebody that he was a real life hobo, and cut his teeth on a 3-string guitar that was just a junk guitar that he thought was haunted. And he's come out with the most incredible music I've heard in a long time. But that's the fiddly bit that has really changed my life and kind of refreshed my passion for the blues, because listening to his music, you can feel his authenticity and his passion, not only for blues, but for life in general. And that's something that all across the board, whether you're a whiskey guy, tobacco guy, music guy, whatever, I think we all can relate to, is authenticity and just a passion for whatever it is that you do.
Music speaks to everybody very differently, and regardless of what wake of life you come from, blues and the old timey jazz and whatnot tends to transcend a lot of different aspects of individuals' lives and just kind of hits you where you need to at the time.
Yeah, it's funny that you should even bring that up today, because I've always been a blues guy from way back, even when I was a kid. I'd listen to blues stuff that my parents had records around and things like that. And I get into a wide range of music, but I was feeling pretty bored with everything that I was listening to recently, and kind of down about that, because music's a pretty important thing to me and kind of always has been. And I randomly put on some blues records today at work, and it really just lifted my mood, and I just was instantly into it. It felt like going back home,
Yeah,
Nice.
that's good.
Yeah.
Actually, Josh, you've heard me sing a little bit of blues.
Yeah, that's right.
We did. Back at the opening for Crowded Barrel.
Yeah.
That was a fun little that was a fun time. We gotta do that again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
So Brad, what do you got going on?
Well, some people might have noticed this box that has been sitting beside me, which
Right in the
is
corner
Show
there.
us your box, Brad.
Oh boy.
the Scotch
say
Whiskey
that.
Advent Calendar from Secret Spirits, which is a whole bunch of little sample bottles of whiskey as an Advent calendar, one a day in December until Christmas, of all kinds of different sort of. I guess these are all like barrel picks and special bottlings and things this time. So it's all very specially just for the Advent calendar.
Yeah, that was my understanding as well.
Interesting having 25 different whiskeys to try next month.
Nice. I'm excited to come over unexpectedly and try some.
All kinds of little samples.
Ooh, look at that. That's a nice size.
You've
it's
already got yours, and I still haven't gotten an email confirmation about mine shipping.
Canada.
The only time where it's helpful to be Canadian is if it's actually shipping from Canada.
Oh, is that the deal? It was shipping from Canada? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're out of Alberta.
Oh, okay, that makes sense then. I was not.
All I'm saying is you're lucky I don't have a passport, and none of you would have any more whiskey.
Matt, get a passport and come up here
Come on up.
ASAP. Straight
Working
up.
on it.
I'm gonna
Do
see you next week, right? What are you even talking about?
Well, I'm not going to get into what you're going to be
And
tasting.
I'm gonna see Vito in 2 days.
Wow, I can't Toronto meetup.
Hooray!
So yeah, so that's good.
So what about you, Josh? What's going on with you?
Well, we were talking earlier this week about how much we just really love the recycled reviews that Roy Akavite does. And
Yes.
we've been talking amongst ourselves. We don't want to just copycat that segment that he has. And if nobody's seen it, they're brilliant, right? So a lot of times when you're doing whiskey reviews or you're watching whiskey reviews, they uncork it, right? Like the Bourbon Night guys, they have the uncorking segment, or it's something that they're opening for the first time and trying it, right? What Roy is doing is waiting until he's finished the bottle and then giving you his final statement, having spent some time with it, seen it change, and gotten to know it a little better instead of the first impressions. It's kind of the final word. And I kind of really enjoy that. And it's about a 20-minute long video where he goes and he brings out whiskeys and tosses them into the recycling bin, giving you his opinion on each one. So I finished this one this week. This was Glengoyne 12. And this was recommended to me by my friend in the UK, Andy Morris. Got me into Glengoyne, recommending it highly. And I spent some time with this, and I've tried some of the other expressions as well. I think it's a fantastic value. It's an excellent Highland Scotch. They don't do anything heated, but they do run, they say, the slowest stills in Scotland. So they run them very low temperature for a long time, which encourages kind of a light and fruity spirit. But it's by no means boring. It's got a lot of apple and lemon and kind of coconut notes and stuff like that in there. And I definitely saw it change, from the beginning to the end of the bottle. It got more creamy, and I think it seemed better integrated. I think as I got past the neck pores and got a little further down, it seemed to kind of open up and present its best self to me. And it's 43%. The 12-year-old's not too terribly expensive generally, but yeah, fantastic stuff. I would absolutely recommend it, and I buy it again.
You know what's great about what Aquavite does with that and what you just did is I view whiskey as a story, right?
Yeah.
I drink whiskey to discover that story, what it says to me, whether a memory or something that I imagine. And what's fantastic about that is that bottle down kind of point of view is that for me, it provides an opportunity to see that story complete in another person's eyes.
Exactly.
So, and that's spectacular. And I think a lot more people should review their whiskey in that manner to kind of put that final chapter in that bottle and get excited about opening that new chapter, whether you repurchase that bottle or not.
Right. Roy makes an excellent point. I've heard him say it a few times that he doesn't like to even give a public opinion on a whiskey based upon the initial pour, because sometimes those can be great, but other times they do need a little bit of opening up to present their best self to you. Right.
And even when he does open up a fresh bottle, he did a live stream a couple of weeks ago where he did, and he even said prior to opening it, he's like, take in mind, this is the first pour out of this bottle. It may not be what it actually is. It needs to oxidize a little bit and kind of marry itself and all that.
Yeah.
Right.
So
what he mentioned in one of his videos is like a relationship, right? When you first open that bottle, it's just like an introduction. It's like saying, "How are you doing?" You're getting acquainted, and then as that relationship develops, you really find the character of that individual, and you really find the connection you have on a personal level, and you can see if that's going to be a relationship worth keeping around or not.
Right.
man, you're so deep, Ray. So deep.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna keep my comments to myself.
Right. So we've been talking about doing that, instead of just taking this bottle, pulling out the cork, saving it, and throwing it away. Maybe each week saving if we happen to finish a bottle, or maybe even doing the final pour if we're to that point in the week on the live stream. Right?
Yeah, we've been trying to figure out a couple of like different smaller segments to add, and as we streamline all this process for us and you guys, coming up with stuff that would be a bit interesting. And that's something that we were talking about the last couple of days, is what happens when we finish a bottle. Should we do a bottle review? Should we save a bunch and do something not quite like Roy, but take a bit of inspiration from him? So there's a bunch of different things that we're going to be hopefully trying out, and this is a bit of an experiment for us, and hopefully you guys have been enjoying and continue to enjoy some of the craziness that we try to incorporate into this journey that we have going on here.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Well,
what about you, Vito?
And I want to just take a quick moment. There's going to be something else that I'm going to review, but I also want to just take this moment to, on behalf of all of us, send my thoughts and my strength to Mike Lissak's family during a bit of a tough time.
Absolutely.
It's a shame that at this point in our society that it's still prevalent, but it is, and cancer affects everybody in some way, in your families and whatnot, and just want to reach out in more ways than one. If you need anything, you let us know. We're here to listen, to talk, to give our encouragement and our support. We're all here, and all the best for the coming procedures, with your loved one, and hopefully everything works, and everyone comes out better for at the end of everything. So, Slanchima, good health to your family, and
yeah. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, buddy. We love you. We're here for you.
Now, on a lighter note, I want to recommend a game. I haven't played the game yet, but I've seen it played because my buddy won't let me play it. Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah.
What a beautiful game. I've been watching my buddy play it a couple times. Holy moly, man. Gorgeous game.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
My buddy and a couple other people that I know that have been talking about it have said nothing but great things. If you own, I'm pretty sure it's playable on most platforms. So like Xbox, PS2, PS2. Wow, I am dated. I am so dated.
You're not dated.
PlayStation,
Xbox and PlayStation.
Xbox and PlayStation. Definitely. If you played the first one, I played a bit of the first one. It was amazing. I can only imagine how good the second one is with the amount of time that they've had to work on it. Yeah,
can't wait for it to come out on Game Gear. It's going to be great.
Yeah, take a look, and yeah. So let's do this. Oh, and Mike just responded. Going back, his wife is kicking ass and going back into remission. So
excellent,
beautiful. Keep strong. Let's do this. We'll get through it. And fuck cancer. Oh, can I say that? I did it anyways.
You just did.
So yeah, yeah.
Jeremy Sims is like, it's gonna be on Dreamcast, Master System, NES.
Amazing!
It's everywhere.
If it's not Atari or regular Nintendo, I don't have nothing to do with it, man. So you're not dated. I am dated.
The only system I have is N64. Actually, you know what? And the game that's hooked into it right now, hold on. Super Smash Bros. 64.
Whoa, old school.
Rock on, man.
So I've been asked twice now in the chat to tell a story, and I don't. If you guys have time for a quick story about how Daniel Whittington broke my cigar humidor,
You know what? I meant to ask you about that earlier. I saw a certain individual ask that earlier.
I was just gonna let it pass by, but then it came up again.
So let's do it. Give us your story.
Okay, so I had it's a little plastic lunchbox like cigar humidor, right? Like I was saying earlier, but I had a small one to begin with that was a little bit cheaper than the one I have now. And we were out at Wizard Academy for happy hour and hanging out like in the Wizard's Tower by Daniel's office. And we decided to go down and smoke some cigars with people. And so we're sitting there with Daniel and his wife, Haley, and my wife, Gretchen. And then I think we had 2 or 3 other people there, maybe Deb. Anyhow, sitting there drinking whiskey, having a good chat, smoking cigars. And then Daniel had been done with his cigar for a little while. And he set it down and he said, hey, I don't really want to go back up to my office and get another one. Do you have a cheap smoke in there I could borrow from you? And I said, man, here you go. You've been nothing but generous to me. You can take anything you like out of here. So he opens up the small humidor and breaks one of the latches off in his hand completely. It just completely snaps off. And he just terrified, just mortified that he had just broken this in his hand. I said, oh man, that's okay. It's a little latch, a little plastic piece. It's no big deal. Just calm down. You didn't break anything that was like super expensive. No big deal. And he goes, oh, no, well, fuck it. And then he chucks it into the woods.
He would.
All that frustration with Rex coming out on that latch.
Yeah. Gretchen went and retrieved the latch from the woods and is holding on to it as some sort of a lucky charm or something, I think. To this day.
Well, Daniel is rather wee, so a lucky charm is quite fitting.
Yeah, true. Yeah, exactly. He made good.
I hope he doesn't listen to this.
He's probably too busy, but he made good on the whole deal. Though the next time I saw him, he gave me a nice cigar, as a sorry for breaking your humidor. So, yeah.
Speaking of Daniel and humidors and stuff, the Crowded Barrel cigar is pretty damn tasty.
Yeah, you were there for the opening day, so you got to test out their it's a separate blend wrap, or how do you describe a cigar?
Well, it's a blend designed by Daniel and Rex. And what they did was they used the hand roller that was there, the guy that was there hand rolling cigars with that specific blend. I think it's part Nicaraguan, the filler. I think the Honduran is maybe, the wrapper is probably Honduran.
Okay.
But it's built around. But they use that as kind of like the testing ground to see if they're going to band it and sell it at the distillery itself, at the tasting room. And it's really a spectacular cigar. It's one of the few cigars that I've tasted that has buttery notes, which I found was just beautiful.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what went into it, but the shop that made it is called Babalu, and that's just up the road from my office here in Austin. And they roll, cigar shop, but they make all of their cigars in house. Of course, the tobacco comes from Nicaragua or something like that. I think
it's Nicaraguan. I mean, you could get it from anywhere, but I think what they specifically use is Nicaraguan, and it's all long filler. Long filler is basically full leaves that have been sliced lengthwise. The short filler are usually, not always, but usually just the end pieces and scraps that they use. And you get a difference in flavor profile. It's not as consistent. The burn on the cigar is not as consistent with short fillers, usually, not always. But these are long fillers. And they're a great little stick if you ever go to Austin and go to the Crowded Barrel distilleries and see them, go ahead and pick one up. And
Yeah.
I've had the Eleanor, and it pairs beautifully. Specifically, I think it's with the 60. I think that's the chapter 3, maybe, of the Eleanor.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was the 60.
Yeah.
I'm almost positive I remember it being the 60 as well.
Yep.
Yeah, that's that pairing. The flavors, the flavor profile of both is so consistent. It's just beautiful, and I highly recommend it if you have the opportunity for all of you.
Well, I think Brad's gonna be there soon, but
I am.
Mm-hmm.
I should be there in February.
Beautiful.
I like me some cigars. Hopefully, if they have some available, I'll definitely take a look.
Yeah, they
on your recommendation, Ray. And if it's not good, I'm gonna hold you to it. And by golly, man, don't make me whip out my Canadian wrath.
Not again. Not twice.
Not again. Not that Nickelback incident.
Unprecedented.
We already.
It's gonna be a thing. Hashtag Canadian Nickelback incident.
Well, as much as your Canadian wrath is terrifying, I will do my best to hold strong during the beating that I'll be taking.
Just give me a nice friendly handshake and we'll be good.
There you go.
And with that, we're gonna say good night to the mariachi.
Good night, sir.
Good night
so
good night to the Brad, and good night to the Josh. And good night to everyone else that's been joining us through this little bit of a hiccup of a night with the technical issues.
I don't know what you're talking about. It was perfectly fine.
This is a
The professionalism is on another level.
Professionals here at Cast.
Really quickly before we say goodnight, I'd like to say to you all, thank you for having me on. Thank you for having the Whiskey Mariachi. It's truly been an honor and a pleasure to learn from you guys and share some of my experiences with you guys and everybody watching. And I'm grateful for you all. And I hope I was able to contribute to your experiences as much as you've contributed to mine.
Man, we love you, and your contributions. We wouldn't be able to do this episode without you. So thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks.
And so thank you to everyone for sticking around with us through everything. Thanks for making the chat fun. Hopefully, we're gonna keep on making this thing fun and interesting, and as long as we have you guys around for the ride, it's gonna be a lot of fun. So stay classy, stay safe, fuck cancer. Love you guys. Sláinte.
Sláinte.